Well, hey Resolve, thanks for joining us for part 5 of our summer Philippians series. Hopefully you've been enjoying these and following along. Hopefully you've been doing them with somebody. If not, go ahead and hit pause, text this link to a friend, say, hey, let's watch this together and talk about it afterward, because that's really our hope for these. But go back and catch up on parts 1 through 4, because we've set the context of what's happening in the book of Philippians. Basically, there's this guy named Paul. He has this crazy story. He wanted to kill all Christians. That was his mission. Ends up becoming a Christ follower, meeting Jesus himself. And so now we see in the book of Philippians, he's writing a letter to some friends of his. And so we're going to dive in. We're still in chapter 2, verses 12 through 18. So if you want, go ahead and follow along. You can hit pause and kind of find your spot. We're just going to read this, chapter 2, verses 12 through 18. He says, "Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose." And then here's the part we're going to focus on. He says, "Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. And then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain, but even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you, so that you too should be glad and rejoice with me." I remember when I first became a Christian and really understood what God had done in my life, I had this passion in me, even as a middle school kid, to influence others and to stand out and to show people that I followed Jesus. The problem was, for me, I didn't really know how to do that at first. And so I would carry my Bible around and hope people would ask about it. I wore some of the cheesy Christian t-shirts that just had these cringy sayings just because I wanted people to say something about it. I just really wanted to stand out. And what Paul's writing to the Philippian church is that, hey, here's how you're going to stand out. He simply says, just don't grumble or complain. That's it. Don't grumble, don't complain, don't be argumentative. And just by that demeanor, just by that attitude, he says you're going to shine like stars through the whole generation. And that sounds like such a simple thing, right? To just not complain, not to argue, not to grumble about stuff. To think that it would have that big of an impact is kind of crazy. But think about it. This is our world, right? I mean, people complain about everything. Just spend one day walking through your hallways and listening to the complaints. Complaints about teachers or too much homework, complaints that it's too hot or that it's too cold. We just live in this world and in this generation. And Paul is saying that, Christian, if you want to stand out, it can be as simple as deciding, I'm not going to be one of those people that just complains about everything. I'm not going to be one of those people that just wants to argue about every little thing. In fact, for some of you, if you were to go home today and decide just with your family, I'm not going to complain this afternoon, your parents might say, there's something to that Jesus guy that he's following, that she's following. Maybe something's happening with this church group because they're going to see something different in you just because you have changed your language and your attitude. And this is what Paul is saying happens when we live like this. Here's the thing. Complaining doesn't just show other people the kind of God that you're following, but it does something in you and in your heart. Because too often we get caught up on these little things, and these small things in our lives really become too big of a deal in our hearts. And when we begin to stop complaining and focus on who Jesus is, on the things that we have to be thankful for and grateful for, it's not just a behavior that we're changing, but you start to change your heart. And so what would this look like? For us just to decide, hey, today, I'm just not going to complain. I'm going to focus on who Jesus is, because think about this. Paul was writing this from prison. He's sitting in prison, tortured for his faith, saying, hey guys, don't complain. I mean, imagine being told this by someone who has everything to complain about. But he knows what Jesus has done for them. And as Christians, we should be the people who complain the least, because God's won. He's spoken identity over us. He has set us free from our shame and our past and our mistakes, and He has given us eternal life to work out here with Him. What do we have to complain about? And so that's what I want you to wrestle with. Maybe just today, focus on some of the things that you talk about, and maybe just be a little bit more grateful, because if you do that, God's going to start to do something in you, and you're going to start to stand out, maybe like you never even thought possible.